On episode 259 of the Tennis Files podcast, you'll learn how to generate power and the importance of fundamentals with Peter Freeman. Hey there, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. Really happy to have you here. And today I have a fun and insightful interview with my good friend Peter Freeman from Crunch Time Coaching. He puts on a lot of fantastic and consistently excellent content at crunchtimecoaching.com and on his YouTube channel. So he does a lot of great work. And today we're going to talk about, as I mentioned in the intro, how you can develop more power on all of your strokes and the importance of focusing on the fundamentals. And some topics within those are going to be the edge of power, which is a really cool and insightful concept that you need to learn about and that you will on the podcast, as well as the power of relaxation and how that translates to more power on your strokes, as well as the different training phases / environments that you need to be aware of when you're trying to develop your strokes. Of course, as well, why you really need to focus on the fundamentals and do so as early as possible, and much, much more. And speaking of developing power in your strokes, I highly encourage you to check out Peter's 7-Day Power Generator Challenge. We talk about it in the episode, but it's going to help you get power on every single stroke in your arsenal. And to do that, to check it out for free, you can go to tennisfiles.com/power challenge. Again, that's tennisfiles.com/power challenge. And there's also a lifetime access option if you choose to do that, if you're really serious about generating more power on all your strokes. So with that, really hope that you enjoy my interview with my good friend Peter Freeman. And here it is. All right, we're here with my great friend Peter Freeman from Crunch Time Coaching. Always really excited to talk to you, Peter. You know, we talk a lot outside of like the summit and the podcast, just about tennis and the matches. And we were just talking about Wimbledon before this, so a lot of great times with you, my friend. How have you been?
I've been great. Really excited. A couple of things. We're having a new challenge coming up, new 7-day challenge, Power Generator Challenge, which we'll talk about today. Also, on Friday, 2 days from now, I'm going to Paris, France.
Oh la la.
And we're going to play on the Roland Garros courts, actually play on the Roland Garros courts. And we're going to tour all over France and play tennis and drink wine and, just be socialites pretty much. It's going to be pretty amazing.
Wow, so they moved the tournament up just for you, Peter.
That's right. We said we're going to need to play on the Roland Garros courts, so you guys got to change, French Open and Wimbledon and everything, so we can do.
You are pretty famous, Peter. But yeah, awesome, man. Awesome. Great to hear that. And I'm really excited to talk to you about how to generate more power, and the importance of fundamentals. I mean, this is something that, I've struggled with, especially on, my serve, for instance, throughout the years. Also, people just in general, like, you see sometimes these like strong looking people or fit people, and they're just like hitting these like, 30-mile-per-hour shots and stuff. So, I mean, what do you think are some of the biggest impediments to us from getting the power that we think we should be able to generate, but we don't?
That's right. I mean, it really does come down to fundamentals. It's learning how to use your body, syncing up the kinetic chain, doing things technically correct so that the ball goes in with fairly not too much effort and goes in fast, and also that you're avoiding injury, because I find that people fall into two camps who complain about power. Number one is they feel like they're working really hard and they can't generate power. Well, that lets me know their fundamentals aren't there. And number two is they can hit the ball hard, but they can't control the power. They can't control their power. So when you fall into either of those camps, it comes down to fundamentals, because if you can hit the ball hard, but it's not going in consistently, there's something you're doing that's kind of cheating to create the power, but it's not done the optimal way to be able to actually hit and keep the ball in play.
Yeah, a lot of great points there, and also about being fit as well. Like some of us have these injuries. Like I've had like kind of a reoccurring like minor like hip issue, and I feel like that impedes me in some respects with my serve. Although I can hit a pretty hard forehand, maybe it affects the backhand. But you mentioned that there's certain things that we need to do to generate power. I mean, can you go a little bit in depth and just give us maybe a couple of those things that like are pretty common that we need to do in order to generate power on our strokes?
Well, I think number one is starting to really work your stroke uh, from the ground up. Number one, so there's a couple of different things you want to focus on. Focus from the ground up, and think about a lot of athletic sports. Whenever you're seeing something being hit for power, whether it's a golf shot, whether it's a baseball swing or a tennis swing, the way the power is created is very similar. And I think another thing that a lot of people kind of get confused, it's like you gotta, coil and get in the unit turn, and you gotta use your hips. And I think people equate that to like it has to feel really tough and really physical. The opposite thing is actually true. It's just like you don't have to work as hard as you think you have to work, or sometimes as much as coaches make it seem like you have to work to hit a ball hard. It's just when everything flows at the exact right time and syncs up at the exact right time, then that's when you're going to hit the ball. And whenever I work with a student and say, when they hit just a super smooth, hard shot, I say, how did that feel? And like, it felt effortless, you know. So it really is about making sure that you're working the body in the correct sequence. You're and also to make sure that you're putting the correct spins on the ball as well, because to create power and to create consistent power, you have got to put spin on the ball. Hitting the ball flat kind of makes you like a one-shot wonder player, to where you can turn heads and people are like, what was that? And you're like, I don't even know what that was. But the ability to replicate it gets really tough if you're not putting some type of rotation on the ball. So that's another important part of power, is mixing it with some type of spin.
Yeah, for sure. You need to get that, the accuracy with the spin and whatnot. It's funny. I was hanging out with Greg Lesueur from Online Tennis Instruction, who came up here, around the Maryland D.C. area to give a clinic
Cool.
with Nadim Nasser as well, and then Will came out. So we were all like, having some wine and stuff, and then they had a pretty good debate. And I love both all those guys, and we were talking about the serve, and you may know this as well, like, online tennis instruction, they talk a lot about how the power comes mainly from the upper body, whereas like Will and like Dr. Mark Kovacs, who we all know is amazing, kind of talks more about how the power comes from the legs. And I'm just here to learn, Peter. So I know a lot of it is scientific and whatnot, and there's all these studies, but like, what's your take on serve power? Like, does it come from the lower body, the upper body, the biceps? No, it doesn't. But like, what do you think about that?
Well, I want to be kind of Switzerland and neutral and agree with both of them, because I actually do believe both are necessary.
Yeah.
I've seen the video where Florian, I believe, is serving on his knees and
Yeah.
saying, "Look, it's all the arm." But if you really look at what he's doing, he's using actually his knees, whether he realizes it or not, as ground force. His knees are now digging in the ground. So he's, and if you look at the hips, they're still rotating everything. Like if you're just isolating the actual arm and say go ahead, you're going to lose a lot of power. On the other hand, you can have the perfect kinetic chain up to the arm,
Yeah.
but the arm is the master. If the
Yeah.
arm is working ineffectively,
Oh, yeah.
you are not going to have power. So certainly, it's the kinetic chain building up, and then the real magic happens. Like, what are the arms going to do if we do everything right leading up to that? So if you lead everything up the kinetic chain the right way, using your body, and then you also the arm motion is correct, then boom, you're going to crush it. If you do everything perfect and you don't really know how to smoothly go through a serve or a forehand or whatever, then, disaster is going to strike.
Peter, I think you and me should both go into politics, maybe you president, I'm vice president, or vice versa. But I also agree with you. I mean, both do have merit, and I can see why both argue one or the other because, I think as you analyze on my serve, like I had a pretty decent setup, like the legs
Yes.
and everything, but it was like the throwing motion itself and the timing that robbed me of a lot of power. But on the other hand, for sure, if you're not using your legs, efficiently at all, then you do lose a lot of power like you just talked about. So it's definitely like a double-edged sword. So I definitely appreciate your, intake on that. And what about the aspect of fundamentals? I sometimes I cry at night, kind of thinking back to. Well, I don't do that, but like just thinking about how there's certain technical aspects of my game where like if I had kind of developed it properly as a youngster, I would be in a lot a lot higher level than what I made and where I am at now. So like what do you think about just fundamentals in general, how important it is, and like how much we should be focusing on that?
Well, yeah. I think it all comes down to taking an honest evaluation of your game and what sacrifices you're willing to make as a tennis player in your matches and then in your practice. And what I mean by that is I've been saying this one thing lately that, a lot of people can relate to as players. I'm saying hitters win, pushers win, right? Hitters somebody who, you go out there, they look amazing. They're your top juniors, maybe your teaching pros, your best players at the club, and everybody on the tour, right? They can hit the ball and they look beautiful and the ball goes in. And that's how they win a lot of matches. Then you have, especially in recreational tennis, where a lot of pushers will win. They have no technique, but the ball goes in. And that's because they're being very efficient with their move. They're not taking a big backswing. All they're doing is see ball, hit ball, put the ball in the strings, and they don't worry about any swing thoughts. And then you have where tweeners lose, and that means the people that haven't developed their fundamentals but are trying to develop their fundamentals, and they go out there and at some point their stroke falls apart because their fundamentals are not baked in. So they end up doing kind of both when they hit. They're not willing mentally. A lot of people say, man, I'd rather lose 0-0 than go out there and
I've
look
heard
like
that.
that. So
Yeah.
so when they say that, then they're like, but they don't want to lose to that player either. So they start compromising their strokes because their fundamentals are not baked in. And then they start playing, really nightmare brand of tennis. So if you are going to say, well, I want to build the fundamentals, you got to spend a lot of time off court. You've got to really be religious about it. And you've got to work in closed through open practices, which is what I do in my challenges. I try and practice in my 7-day challenges like the pros are willing to do.
Yeah, 100%. And like, tell us a bit more about that, because like like you mentioned, we have to be willing to practice and do things even off court. Like, what are some of the basics that we should be doing then?
I think it all, first of all, starts with the mindset. You know,
Mm,
I got to interview Rod Laver, the greatest living legend in our
sweet.
sport. Now I'm watching Wimbledon. He's there in the stands. Everybody gives him the ultimate respect. No one's been able to do the Grand Slam since Rod, and that's 1969. He said you can't skip steps. Then I did a video about a month ago, or probably less than a month ago, when Steph Curry was getting ready to win another NBA title. And I was looking at the way he practices, and he has a practice series where he calls it underrated. And why is that? Because he was underrated and he worked extremely hard. And there was even a story that I heard on Steph where, when he was like in 8th grade, he could put a bunch of balls in the basket, but he was shooting from like here and not above his head. And
Mm,
his dad, who was one of the best NBA shooters, he said, you're not going to be able to, you're going to get stuck if you keep shooting it like that. You've got to learn how to shoot over your head. And his brother, um, I forget what his brother's name is, but his brother basically said he saw Steph struggle the entire summer and cry. He was crying because he couldn't make a basket. He was used to seeing the ball go in. but he knew that to be good, he was going to have to get over this. So he went through the growing pains. Then I recently am going to put a video out showing how Tiger Woods practice. And Tiger Woods again says, there is no magic bullet. There is no quick fix. And he's like, and you shouldn't want that if you want to be good. You want to have to earn it, And so all the people who've achieved a high level, they like the idea of hard work. They like the idea that it's not going to come easy, that you've got to put in the hours if you want the results. And it's just, and it's to, another thing that Tiger says is to enjoy the process. Don't get focused on that, well, if I do this, the results must come and they must come soon because I'm working so hard. And then if they don't come as quick as you think it is, then you think either you're not very good or that the tennis gods are against you. It's enjoying the day in and day out process of doing it. So it starts with mindset. And then I've talked a lot, so I'll let you ask the next question.
Yeah, so I mean, just want to dig deeper per usual. Like, how do you develop that mindset to enjoy the process? Because I mean, a lot of us have that, results oriented of like, I just want it quickly. So how do you like turn the tables and actually get that and then keep that mindset?
Well, I think you have to remember why you want those strokes. I think a lot of people want the nice strokes because they like the way they look. They see themselves not hitting the ball a certain way. They're like, I don't want to play like that. So if you enjoy the art of tennis, and that was one of the things that I enjoyed growing up. I think that's why I was a pretty high level junior, state, number one in the state, played national tennis, went to play Division I tennis, is besides trying to just win matches, I was excited to learn a new skill. I liked the way the game looked. So no one had to tell me to do the things that coaches beg players to do. Like no one had to tell me do shadow strokes. I would just be going around the house all day doing a shadow stroke. I'd be looking at because I learned how to really volley kind of like in my teenage years, early teenage years. So I remember just going around the house, and then if there was a mirror there, I'd watch myself, hit a volley, and pretend that I was hitting a volley in a match or, that I was a player at Wimbledon or something like that. And I really loved the way it looked. And so I think if you remember, why do you want these nice strokes? It becomes more fun than putting pressure on yourself.
Yeah, and what was it for you? Like, what were your whys?
I just love the way it looks. So like, I mean, I love the way Pat Cash hit a volley. So I remember there was a while where I had an Australian coach where I was just like trying to pretend I was Pat Cash when I was hitting the volley. And I wanted to look just like him, and I wanted that same exact finish, that I just wanted to look just like that. And since we didn't really have video then, I did look in the mirror a lot. I looked in the mirror to over and over again to go, does that what Pat Cash's volley look like? Does it look like that? And the more it started to look like that, I started to feel it. And that's another thing that Tyler talks about is feel versus real. Sometimes you can feel that you're doing it right. And I think this is where a lot of students fall into trouble is they feel that they're doing it right, but it's not real. They're not really doing what they think they're doing. And even Tiger, amazingly enough, Tiger will say, I'm feeling like I'm doing something on the golf course. And I'll ask my coach, am I doing it right? And they'll say, no, that's not exactly it. I mean, can you imagine that, Tiger Woods? So he says he even has to struggle to make his feel become real. And that's another thing about my 7-day challenges is when you go through the challenge, you can watch the instructional video and then you video yourself. So then you're going to be looking at yourself probably before you send the video. And then you send me the video and I can watch it and analyze it for you. And I can tell you if your feel is real or if your feel is false.
That's awesome. Yeah, and we'll definitely get some more details on that. You always do a great job with those challenges, Peter. In terms of the power that we want to generate, like which stroke do you think people have the most trouble with to do that?
Without a doubt, it's the serve, and that's
Okay.
why we go on the serve. Day one is the serve. It is the most complicated stroke, and especially if you've been playing a little while, and you know that you haven't started with good fundamentals, and you can get the ball in play, and you have some level of success, you can somehow win matches with not the best serve. It gets really, really tough to break down the fundamentals and get it right. I think it's almost impossible to have perfect serve fundamentals without really good coaching. I
Yeah.
think that that is something that requires coaching, to explain it what it needs to be, and then also to get you out of the woods on what you're doing wrong.
Yeah, definitely. Like if there's a particular phase of the stroke, of the serve that like people like mess up the most, that like is basically a power leak, like which is a common term in tennis. Like what a part of the serve would you say that would be from your experience with, your thousands of students that you've taught?
Well, that's a great question. So, um, I actually did a 3x power serve course a while back where I said there's 17 different power leaks. So I
Oof.
counted, I had 30 people send me a video and I counted different little things they were doing wrong. And I counted up to 17. Maybe there's more, maybe there, but I counted 17 of them. But really, where it breaks down for most people, because a lot of the first couple moves are stylistic choices.
Yeah.
But once you get into the trophy position and then start to come behind the head, it's all the pros pretty much are doing pretty much the same exact thing. And so whether you see the way they stand, pinpoint, platform, where they bring the racket down past their shoelaces or straight up to their head, those are style choices. And they have their pros, they have their cons. But what you're doing once you start to go behind the head, it's got to be perfect. Otherwise,
Mm.
you're going to lose power and lose control of the tennis ball.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the eternal struggle for like a lot of tennis players and myself too when I video is like I get that it's Rick Macy, the common a lot of the high level tennis coaches and people have been following him like no, where you're dropping the racket head before you're pushing
Mm-hmm.
up. But like what specifically is that it, or is like what specifically would that like that after that you get in the trophy position, are people like doing incorrectly, would you say?
So the two main things, you did one of them. If you are driving up, if you bring your racket back before you start driving up your legs, you're going to lose
Yeah.
out on a lot of power. So
Yeah.
I have drills inside the 7-day power generator challenge on how to get that timing perfectly, how to sync that up perfectly.
Nice.
The other thing is, now that I've been coaching for a while, I probably would have never thought of this until I became a coach, is how your thumbnail moves. So a lot of
Mm.
people are going to be listening to this. So that's, again, another reason why to go through the video so you can see it. But I'm showing Mehrban right now. If your thumbnail, when you're bringing it behind your head, you can't see it, that means you're probably going into what they call the classic waiter tray position, where the pros, when they go behind their head, if you're looking at your thumbnail the entire time, it's actually moving in the correct position. You're going to get that racket drop moving the correct way.
Mm. I love that. I love that. Yeah, I'm definitely tuning in because I really want to see that too, but also the drills for the timing the legs and upper body, because that's something that's really tough to train. I think if you don't know the proper drills, for sure. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, awesome stuff. Um, so I guess another question for you, Peter, is like, what's the structure for the 7 day power generator challenge? I know you mentioned that like it's the serve. What are you going to do next after that? Because I'm definitely joining.
Well, we're cool. Well, we're gonna cover all the shots. So we're gonna do a serve on day one, then we're doing the forehand day two, then we're doing the backhand, then we're gonna go to the net and do forehand and backhand volleys overhead. So we're covering every single thing, because on every single shot, you can do inefficient moves that makes you lose power and also makes you miss shots. And that's the thing that is so tough about tennis is, if you are, let's say, a basketball player, you can go, well, hey, if I can just grab this ball out of the air and rebound it before anybody else does, I can make millions of dollars. If you can go, hey, I can't grab a lot of rebounds, but man, you leave me out in the corner and passing the ball, I'll make it. You know, if you're a huge guy, like I can't shoot threes, like Shaq couldn't shoot threes, but you pass me the ball inside, I'll dunk it. But with tennis, it's like you can't get away with that. You're like, I've got to serve the ball in. I've got to be able to maintain a good rally. When I get a short ball, I got to be able to hit a good approach shot, maybe hit a winner sometimes. And when I come to the net, I got to end the point either with a volley or an overhead. So you've got to be good at everything, and that's what makes the sport so tough. There's nowhere to hide. You've got to be good at everything, and you got to be able to hit everything from time to time with enough power to hurt your opponent, and you got to be consistent with it. If you can just do it once in a blue moon, again, that's where a pusher can just deflect a couple balls and completely demoralize you. So we go through everything.
Nice, nice, nice. And then how do we so we're talking about generating power. How do we generate it consistently? Is that like a fitness thing? Is that like a repetition thing? Like what do we have to do there?
Well, again, I like to talk about a concept called the edge of power. If
Mm,
you look at tennis at an advanced level, you're always attacking the ball in some way with the edge of your racket. And a lot of recreational players, when they start going out, they just start to think about how can I meet the ball in the middle of the strings? And this is actually
right.
a recipe for disaster. If you're always coming at the racket with it basically, flat and even, a lot of times you're going to be a little off and there's going to be no rotation on the ball. And so you're either going to miss it in the net or out. The pros, when they're going to hit topspin forehands or backhands, they're going to get beneath the level of the ball. Their edge is going to be coming forward. It's going to put topspin on the ball. And then that will generate, spin and power. Spin actually takes power away from the ball, but what it does is it gives you the freedom to give yourself the green light to swing as fast as you want, and the ball will still go in. So even though you're
Yeah.
losing power by putting spin on it, you're gaining a hell of a lot of confidence once you have your fundamentals down. When you're going to hit a slice backhand or volleys, it's the opposite. You're actually attacking the ball not with the top of the racket, but with the bottom of the racket. And that's going to put underspin and bite on the ball. And so that helps you make your volleys more consistent and do what they call sticking a volley. If you're going to hit a serve or an overhead, again, a lot of recreational players, and again, if you guys are not able to watch this but hear it, but I'm showing Mehrban, they basically, the easy way is they kind of put their hand forward and they try and hit the ball, right?
Yeah.
But again, you're not going to be consistent like that, where a pro is attacking the ball with basically on edge. I'm using my hand as the edge here, and they're attacking that ball and then going up and hitting either a serve or an overhead with it. So that's the key to be able to not only have power, but to make the ball in play to win matches.
Yeah, super interesting that you mentioned that I haven't really heard before, I don't think, is like on the on the slice, you said you're actually attacking with the bottom edge. So why is it the bottom edge versus like the top or the middle?
Yeah, so because when you're going to hit a volley or you're going to hit a slice backhand, you're putting something called underspin on the ball.
Yeah.
And underspin, they work completely opposite. So underspin, the ball actually wants to rise off of that. So if you have inefficient technique, the ball will just float and go away from you. Okay. Topspin, the ball naturally wants to go down, which a lot of people think the opposite because they see the ball go up. And when they
Right.
hit, and when you see slice or a good ball, you see the ball pretty much go down. So that's why you've got to sync up the two ideas. You're attacking the ball with the bottom edge of your racket, so you can put that cut on the ball, but you got to make sure that your body is really kind of leaning in and forward and get out in front of it so you can keep the ball down because it's naturally going to rise up. So if you do that a little wrong, if you're too close to the ball, if your racket face is slightly too open, if you're leaning backwards, the ball is going to take off on you. But if you can attack the ball with the bottom edge and use your body the exact right way, the ball is going to come pretty fast and smooth off your racket, hit the ground, skid and stay low, and people are basically going to have to dig the ball out of their shoelaces when you do it right.
Yeah, great stuff, Peter. I just think that people, kind of like you mentioned, they just get a little bit apprehensive about meeting the ball, square. So then they square up too soon instead of like, keeping that edge going until the last minute and then, striking the ball. So that's a big tip there, just to think of it as the edge of power. Definitely love that. Um, to go back to the serve, I know you mentioned that this is, somewhat stylistic, but I was wondering if you are a proponent of any of these techniques. One that I hear a lot is to like lag the hitting arm a bit. So instead of like bringing both arms up together, you kind of do a lag so that then you just have to bring the hitting arm up like a bit quicker. And then the other one I was curious about is the low toss, to kind of, from what I hear, it kind of eliminates like hitches if people have that. So, hey, B2, what's up?
That's B2.
So, yeah, B2, that is, for everybody, that is Peter's very faithful dog there. So those two techniques, like, what do you think about them? Are they helpful? Are they crucial? What are your thoughts?
They are both helpful and crucial.
Okay. Wow.
So let's first of all talk about the lag. I like to think about it at some point in your serve, you need a built-in hesitation. And
Mm,
why is that? Because if there's no hesitation, if it's just arms down together, up together, you're going to get into the racket drop too soon before the leg drive. Okay.
yes.
When you do that, you're going to lose power. So you've got to build in a hesitation somewhere. Alexander Zverev, um, Roger Federer, they have their hesitation built in pretty much around their knees. They do what you call it. They lag the racket down there for a second. It kind of hangs out for a second. And then when it's time to swing, they pretty much then go into a fluid motion. Andy Roddick was the complete opposite. He didn't do that. He basically came right up to his face. He held the racket right in the throwing position right from the start. But I don't know if anybody had a bigger wait or lag period than him. I mean, he would throw that ball up. He'd bend his legs like crazy. He'd get in the sickest tilt you'd ever seen as far as the way his arm would go up and back. And I mean, just completely coil himself up, wait. And then it was like a bomb went off when he went.
Yeah.
So it is important to hold your racket in a holding pattern, if you will, at some point in the serve. Now, as far as height goes, I think it's tough. A low toss, I don't agree with a low toss. How many
Mm,
people have successfully done a low toss? I can't, maybe Roscoe Tanner, and we've got to go back a long time ago. A lot of people might not even know who I'm talking about when I say Roscoe Tanner. Then there
mm.
was, I'm not even sure I'm saying his name right, Del Pokolov or something like that. They used to call him the dog.
Dolgopolov, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Say his name for me.
Dolgopolov, that's
Yeah,
how I say it. Yeah.
yeah. And he basically would throw the ball up and hit it right off the top. Very
Yeah.
short toss. Then you have people like Lendl when he first came out. I think his toss was a little too high. He eventually brought it down.
Hmm.
Alexander Zverev, his
Yeah.
toss, I think in the beginning was too high. He's brought it down a little bit. Might still slightly too high.
Yeah.
I like you throw that ball up slightly out of your full extended reach, maybe like
Mm,
6 inches to a foot. And the timing, once you get the timing down, I think the optimal toss is when you can see the ball stop and then tell yourself it's time to swing.
mm.
If the ball stops and you're swinging as it stops, well, then it's a too low a toss, right? And that's where you're trying to hit it right on the peak. That's very tough to do. That's tough timing.
It's
But if
tough.
you see the ball stop and then you can calmly say to yourself, now go for it. And then by the time the ball drops a little bit, you strike it. I think that's the best toss in tennis. And I think Federer kind of does that.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. As you can figure out, I'm really interested in the serve. Although obviously the 7 Day Power Generator Challenge, I'll go through all the strokes, which is awesome. One last question, I think maybe on the serve is, do you have a preference? As far as like building in the lag. I know you mentioned at different points. Roddick, Federer, so forth, Tanner. Like, what do you think is the easiest way to incorporate this lag? Like, what stage?
Okay, so I think it really comes down to whatever the player feels most comfortable with. So I don't
Okay.
prefer one over the other because some people, if you make them stand there like Roddick, like I think at one point Maria Sharapova kind of tried to do it similar to that, and she looked very robotic to me
Yeah.
and never really
Yeah.
got her flow back. So some people can look quite robotic doing it. Roddick looked very smooth and fluid doing it. Um, then for other people, they might have a coach that's telling them, no, no, you got to be like Federer. You got to bring it down here. Don't you see Sampras? Don't you see Federer? They come down here. That's what all the great servers do. And some players, that might just be too many moves. That might just be too much. So you have to find which one works for you. However, I do like people. I think everybody, like Federer. Federer, many times you watch him on the practice court, he'll just have the racket right here and throw a couple tosses up and hit him.
Yeah.
Every single tennis player should be comfortable working in what I call the secret power source, basically working up at the top, especially at the beginning, because you're going to have the mistakes when you come behind your head. That's where all the important mistakes happen or they don't happen. And so I think it's important as a training tool to have the racket up top and get this perfect. And then you can figure out, do you like staying up around there? Do you just want to kind of go right up there and hang out and hit it? Or do you feel kind of, once you're going to play a match, is that limiting and you want to have more flow to your serve?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Because I was just thinking about selfishly about my serve, and like I pretty much do bring both arms up like together, and then I do like that early drop, unfortunately. So a lot of times I was thinking like maybe if I built the lag up earlier, that could help eliminate that. But I'll have to experiment and film my serve and then send it to you.
I
so
love it. I'm
yeah,
ready.
yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
Uh-oh, now this is kind of scary. I've been talking to you and I look up and I see Kyrgios is on TV. So I wonder Nadal might have lost.
Oh, is it? Oh, so I have access to the internet here. It looks like Nadal he lost the third set, but he's up 2-1 in the fourth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So so Kyrgios just
So
won?
Kyrgios has a match point. He has
Oh,
a
match
match
point.
point.
Okay, yeah.
And of
Match.
course he's arguing like an idiot. So
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. Yeah. But yeah, and he's, an example of a guy with like a huge serve. I think he builds his lag up earlier. He lags the hitting arm lower and then
well,
hits it.
what Kyrgios does, what he does is he does a slow to fast move. So if you
Yes.
watch Kyrgios go, and I love this, and I teach this inside the 7 day challenge too,
Nice.
is he makes a big move backwards with his legs. Like his toe even comes way the front toe even comes way off the ground. And if you look at him lean all the way back, he still has the racket in a ready position.
Mm.
So that again makes him force a big game of catch up. If you look at him, he moves his body a lot, and his two hands are together. He hasn't even moved this.
Yeah.
So what that is going to force is at the end a big game of catch up, because he goes slow and then fast, bam.
Yeah. It is. I mean, it sounds like you like that. Is that something that you would?
I
Is
do
that
like
something
the
that
slow to
you would?
fast.
It's okay. So you would teach that to somebody after they got the secret power source down.
If they want to, and if I felt like as an individual that kind of works for them, but I
Yeah.
do like it. I do like that rhythm a lot. There's been a lot of
Yeah.
good servers who do it just like that. Goran Ivanisevic, again, another one. If you really think back, he would hold the racket here, lean way back, hold the racket there for a long time, and then boom.
Yeah.
So I love
Yeah.
it.
Good stuff. So let's pivot a little bit, Peter, if you don't mind, and talk about the backhand, because I know that's like probably the second, maybe you have a different opinion, but the second struggle that people struggle with getting power on.
Yes.
So like, what do you think about like maybe the most common mistakes there that rob them of power?
Well, I think it's opposite for a one-hander and a two-hander.
Okay.
The two-handers who lack power, and that's where you might even want to consider going to a one-hander. I find that they get very tight in their arms
Yeah.
and that they tend to move their arms too much. the two-handers that hit great backhands, they're so good at keeping their arms relaxed and working the unit turn and, you know, popping the ball with their hips. And again, whether you have a two-hander or a one-hander, it's all about the hips coming through at the right time. And the two-handers who, hit the ball well, they also have a lot of nice free rotation to where, when they swing, they can keep coming around and kind of open up. The one-handers who struggle to hit power, I think, again, it comes down to they lock up their hips really fast. So a lot of it's a footwork error, okay? Because they're taught to turn side on. So they turn side on too early and then they get their hips in the way. I call it hip lock. And then the other thing is a lot of, especially if they've been playing for a long time, they're not aggressive enough with their grip. They're in a weak grip on the one-handed backhand. So it's really tough with the position of the wrist is in to actually create any power. So it's different with the two and the one. Lots of times, what is the problem keeping away the power?
Nice. Peter, I feel like you could do some wordplay with, like, you mentioned hip lock and then like Ziploc bag. Like maybe there's something you could do there with like the bag.
Sure.
You could steal it. I don't care.
Okay. Well, Ziploc might care. I didn't. Do you own Ziploc? I mean, they might have a problem with it.
No, just like, when you're teaching, you're like, oh, like, it looks like you have hip lock and then you have the Ziploc and then maybe you just like show something with it. Like, I don't know. I was just,
I like that, but if I get sued by Ziploc, I'm coming right after you.
Maybe just do it in a private lesson then. But yeah, good stuff there, man. And then in terms of the length of the 7-day power generator challenge, like what's the structure there? Like in terms of like, how long per day, like timing, like all that stuff.
Well, that's another thing I really think that people get confused about.
Yeah.
Is, the video lessons are pretty much between 15 and 25 minutes. And
awesome.
you have the drills on a sheet of paper, and you can watch the drills and see them and hear the tips, and then you go out and do it. And again, you can just practice it 15, 20 minutes a day. And you can fit that in. If you got a match, show up a little early or stay a little later, get it in. Or if you don't have anybody to play with that day, everything's something you can do on your own. And when you're learning a new move, see, it's better to do it by yourself or with as little distractions as possible, whether you're bouncing the ball to yourself or have a ball machine to work with, or if you're working on your serve, you just have you and your basket of serves, and certainly the video camera. Because when you're learning new moves, you need to be in a closed environment.
Yes.
You need no variables involved. And then when you feel like your move is getting really good and you feel like this is getting pretty good, then you need to test it by opening it. And if you open it up by like rallying with people or playing a match and it doesn't go well, guess what you need? Just more time going back in the closed environment. And then you keep opening up again and testing it. Where a lot of people will maybe try something a time or two that their coach showed them or they saw online, and maybe it works or it doesn't work in a closed environment, and then they go out and use their match and they don't do it well, and they think, oh well, that tip doesn't work, or I'm not good enough to do the tip, and then they just give up. Where the great ones, Steph Curry, how great is he at dribbling a ball? Why does he dribble the ball, 2 balls before every single game? He doesn't need to do it anymore. He's got it, but he does it all the time to keep that sharpness up, to keep his fundamentals razor sharp. So these drills, you never, ever, ever outgrow them. It should, everything I put in my challenges, I firmly believe, should be part of people's practice systems that they religiously use. Not that they just use it's 7 days, but it's like a 7-day perfect practice system. What I don't want to get people confused on is like, just don't do it for 7 days and that's it. It's like you do it for 7 days, like, damn, that was a great week. What if I did this every week?
Yeah, exactly. You can't just stop it and expect to be all good. In terms of in terms of like the environments, like how would you categorize like the progressions? Like obviously we talked about like, you know, uh, drop hit. I know we know about shadow swing. So like what were the phases would you say like to advise people like, okay, I'm transforming my stroke. Like what are the different environments that they should progress step by step?
Okay, well, let's first of all, we'll combine two learning environments.
Okay.
This the process of learning and then the best learning environment. So the process of learning is unconscious incompetence, meaning like I don't know what I don't know. So I'm sure even if you know a lot of how to hit a forehand or how to hit a serve, how to hit a backhand, if you kind of even have heard that before, I'm sure there's going to be things in the 7 day challenge you're like, oh, I never even thought about that. I didn't even really realize that. So then you're kind of like learning. So that's part of the phase is you've got to hear a coach tell you something, a new idea that you never heard of before. You're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I should probably start learning how to do that. Right. So then you go from unconscious uh, incompetence right away to all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, now I'm aware of it, but I still can't do it. So that's conscious incompetence, right? You're like, I know it now, but I still can't do it. And then you go to conscious competence means I can do it, but I have to sure think about it a lot. And that phase can last a long, long time. And then you get to where you can just have unconscious competence. You don't even need to think about it. You can just do it. So when you're in the beginning phases, the first 3 phases of learning, that's especially where you need to spend a heavy amount of time in closed environments. Closed environments are things like shadow strokes, okay? But just not whacking the racket around, like being very focused with it, almost like you're in the martial arts and you do the moves slowly and deliberately, and then maybe you can start to do them faster, and you're always making sure it's right by videoing yourself. So that would be the first learning environment you should go into. Then you're like, okay, this looks pretty darn good. Let me go out and have a ball machine feed me slow, or maybe just bounce the ball to myself. That's the next thing you do. Or you have the ball machine. Did I say ball machine feed you slow? That's how you would do it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're like, let me try and actually hit with somebody, but let's hit in the short court, or let's rally with low compression balls. Then you can go, we're getting in a pretty good groove. I'm doing it right. Let's go back to the baseline and hit. Let's hit some cross courts. You see, now let's open up, play some points. And then now let's play a match and let's see what I can do. And then you just always evaluate where you are and you rinse and repeat.
Love that, Peter. Love that. I'm curious, for this challenge, like that you're hosting, are there any like what tools would you need like to participate?
You need a great mindset.
Yes.
You want to have fun. You need your
Uh-huh.
racket.
Okay.
You need some balls.
Yeah.
And if you got a court, even better. But sometimes people will say to me, oh, I couldn't do your challenge this week because, it was cold outside, or because I'm
Yeah.
traveling, or, during coronavirus, the courts are locked up. That is not an excuse in my mind. Everybody can do the challenge, even if you don't have a tennis court, because you are, I promise you, unless Pete Sampras is out there watching my challenges trying to do them, there's inefficiencies in your stroke that need to be worked out without a ball being hit to you.
Yes. Yes, 100%. Yeah, just don't underestimate the power of shadow strokes, please. Peter, that's fantastic. Can you give us dates on the challenge as well? So I know we're obviously recording this in advance and should be released on the 13th of July by my count. Yes. So
No,
what are the dates?
well, yeah, the dates are July 27th to August 3rd is when we're actually going to do the actual challenge. But we're
July 20th.
starting to invite people to the challenge early so they can get in and be ready and prepare.
Yeah, 100%. And I'll definitely have a link that I probably would have read out in the intro of this episode already and in the outro. So definitely really highly encourage you guys and gals and everybody to join. It's really going to be a fantastic one. And it's so cool too, because like you're going through, all the strokes like we talked about, and you're basically just teaching us how to get more power on all of them. So you're obviously narrowing down, the most important parts of, of generating power for each stroke. And
Yep.
then it's not long either, like you mentioned, I think you said it was like 15 to 25 minutes per video or something like that. Like, each day for 7 days. So, but definitely you want to keep at it. Definitely. And I think it's probably, is it Peter, where it would be advised if you want to keep practicing, that you just get like some sort of like all access or like lifetime access sort of deal.
Yeah, you can get lifetime access too. So you get free 48-hour access to each day. So if you want to do the challenge and you want to try it for free, just so you can really see how good it is, that's the point of why I make it for free,
Yeah.
is you can get free 48-hour access. If you're serious about your game and you decide like, yeah, I should be doing this a lot, make this part of my routine, then you can get lifetime access so that you can always have it there. I actually heard something interesting today. There was a study that what you hear from somebody today, tomorrow you're going to forget 75% of that conversation.
Yeah.
And that's kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, I heard a similar statistic with like books, like you retain very little percentage. I was like 12% or something. I forget, but yeah. So definitely, I'll encourage that, and that's super cool of you to do it in that format, so people can try first and see if they like. But yeah, awesome, Peter. So. Again, highly encourage everybody to check out and join the 7-Day Power Generator Challenge. I will be in there as well, enjoying Peter's top-notch instruction. He's been at it for so long, and I was one of the most passionate coaches by far. I mean, just having that feature where you analyze people's videos. That's very time-consuming, and you get a lot of them, so that's super cool, Peter. Peter, what's next on the horizon for you? What are you up to lately? Anything exciting that we should know about?
Well, there's going to be lots of exciting things as far as, like I said, in a couple of days, I'm going to France. Going to try and do a lot of videos out there as well, so people can see
Yes.
that. So make sure you go to my YouTube channel. Um, then in August, we're going to be in Cincinnati doing the Masterclass Clinic, which is going to be a lot of
Ooh.
fun. Still have some spots open if people are interested.
What are the
Then
dates?
we're going to be doing August 12th through the 14th. And then we go out to the opening round matches together. And then we got a semifinal weekend where we go Thursday through Sunday, August 18th to 21st. And then after that, it's all about getting Barron down on TennisCon, which, is such a fun project, as you know, from your amazing tennis summit.
Thank you, my friend. Yeah, you do an amazing job too. I can't wait for that. We always try to, I wouldn't say one up each other, because we help each other out, talk about it, brainstorm, but like always trying to push the barrier and improve every year. So really excited about the TennisCon coming up, and definitely you'll be hearing about it from both of us. And is the August 18th to 21st also in the Cincy tournament?
Yeah,
You said as
yeah,
well. Okay,
yeah. The Western Southern
interesting.
Open. It's a great
Interesting.
tournament.
Yeah, I've heard one of my friends is going down there too. I might have to try and see if I can
You need to
make
come.
that.
You would love it.
I know. Yeah, mainly to see you, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I hear it's a great tournament.
I think it's better than I'm just gonna say it. I think it's better than going U.S. Open, because U.S. Open, first of all, it's just so pricey to
Yeah,
do
it's pricey.
everything, tickets,
Pricey.
hotel room, everything.
Yeah.
Extremely pricey. And then, especially on the main court at the Western Southern Open,
Mhm.
there's not a bad seat in the house. So if you were like at the high, if you're like in the high part of the stadium at the Western Southern Open, if you're in that same vicinity at the U.S. Open, you'd be like, who do we
Horrible.
have to kill to get these tickets? Like, these seats are amazing. Like, they're great tickets at the U.S. Open that'd be super expensive. So it is completely different.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I think I remember being in like the Arthur Ashe Stadium, like at the top before, because it's more of my price bracket, generally speaking. But and then I just ended up like looking at the TV a lot of the points.
Oh
'Cause it
yeah,
was like so.
it's a joke.
Yeah,
Really. And we'll just, I don't want to get too far into, because I want people to go off on a tangent, but we'll just finish with this.
yeah.
I mean, the US Open, I think, made a big mistake by trying to be the biggest stadium. I think that's what they try to do. We're going to be the biggest stadium. But if you're looking at Wimbledon, you can see the center court. It's not
Yeah.
big. I went to Rod Laver Arena. It's not a big stadium. It's great, and so at a certain point, you're not getting to see really the way tennis is meant to be watched when it's so high up there.
Yeah, I think you're right. We could definitely go on a tangent here. Maybe a few friends higher up might not be so pleased. But anyways, this has been great. Speaking of power, I really appreciate it, Pete. Like, I just genuinely love doing these episodes with you. Like, I learn a lot, and we just have a lot of fun. So I'm excited to collaborate with you more in the future and put out some content. But again, I can't stress enough how awesome these challenges are that Peter puts on. So definitely join the 7-Day Power Generator Challenge. We'll have a link in the show notes, and I'll have mentioned it already at this point and in the outro as well. So thank you so much to Peter for coming on to the podcast, and I look forward to seeing you again soon, my friend. All the best to you.
All right. So fun. Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right. I really hope that you enjoyed this interview with Peter Freeman. I definitely did myself, and I hope, Peter, you did too. And I really enjoyed talking with Peter. He's just so passionate, as I mentioned, about the sport and helping people improve their game. So I would, again, highly encourage you to check out the 7-Day Power Generator Challenge that Peter is putting on. And you can do that by going to tennisfiles.com/power challenge. That's tennisfiles.com/power challenge. Definitely check that out. I'm going to be doing so myself. And also just want to leave you with a quote, as I often do at the end of the show. And this one is by Erica Jong. And Erica said, "If you don't risk anything, you risk even more." So definitely need to sometimes, take a chance or, change something up in your game, do something different if you want to be different and get the success that is somewhat rare. You've got to work hard and gamble a little bit sometimes and try your best. And sometimes things will work out and you'll be very unique in your success and accomplishments. So hope that motivates you. And with that, I really appreciate you listening and tuning in. And I'll see you on the next episode of the Tennis Files podcast. This is your host, Mehrban and Peter Freeman, signing out.